All right, welcome to Totally Rewarding Chats. This is going to be the first drop for 2026. And in case Paul or I, because I trust Bryan, because he's so much smarter than I am, I'll let Paul speak for himself. We are recording it this at the end of 2025. So if we have how much partying Bryan's going to do on New Year's Eve comments, he's going to pretend it's in the past tense. But this will be the first one of the years. We talk about predictions for 2026. How's it going, Bryan?
It's going great. Yeah. 2026 is off to a great start so far.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You would
perfect.
not, I mean, in spite of what Paul did at that New Year's Eve party, he
Yeah.
has recovered well from it. So
That's right. I have found all of the things.
At the time of this recording, nothing bad has happened in 2026.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are good to go. That's the great thing about recording in the present, past, future. Whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Not to mention, knowing you guys have known each other for years before we get to your bio, the fact that I may have to edit some of this is also, gives me some time.
I want to make sure you keep your skills up. That way AI can't just replace you. You got to figure out how to do that 7-second.
I'm low hanging fruit for AI, bro. Like, I'm like not their target audience. I'm like, that's just going to happen. I'm just going to retire before then.
That's a good T-shirt, though. I'm low-hanging fruit for AI. Like,
I'll be the first one to be
first T-shirt. That would actually be something we need to ask on the socials. Like, give us some cool T-shirts to have at World at Work. And I'm low-hanging fruit for AI. That's a great one. Yeah. I don't know what vendor's going to have that. Are you low-hanging fruit for AI? We're going to give those shirts away.
You'll be distinct.
Yeah. So that I don't screw it up, Bryan. And although it'd be interesting to have Paul give his view, his history of you, we're going to have you give your bio as you would like to have it documented.
Yeah. As I would like to have it documented. There's a lot of ways I could go with that, but I'll play this one straight. Because if Paul had to do this, he would be like, this is a guy that is, tried to spend the last decade trying to break him on stage in conference sessions.
True.
Pretty successfully, I might add. But what I would say is, I've done every job in HR pretty much, from payroll clerk to chief people officer, and I've been on the consulting. I've done stints on the consulting side and on the corporate side. So I think I have. A couple of years ago, I realized I think I checked off all the career boxes of things I wanted to accomplish, and so now I'm just working at things that I really love to do and enjoy. And so, I would say, from a bio standpoint, there's probably a lot of silly stories that I could tell, but the important fact is, I think I'm pretty much at the phase where I'm working for what are the problems I like to solve? How do I get to do things I enjoy? How do I get to work with good people, solve good problems, and do that kind of thing? So I've hit that stage of my career where I've been around and done some things and been some places, but yet I still learn something new every day, or I'm just adding stories for when I get to write the book one day, I guess.
I don't think anyone in it. So actually, the fun thing that comes up all the time: how did you get in to HR? What was your degree, and how did, if you have a degree, for those of us that are uneducated, how did you end up in HR?
Yeah, so I got a political science degree from a school that at the time was called Armstrong Atlantic State University. I think it would now be called the Savannah campus of Georgia Southern University. So that's how esteemed it was at the time.
It has a better ring to it than ASU. Is that literally
yes. Yes, Armstrong Atlantic State University.
Oh, sorry, it's ASU.
And
okay. Right, good to know.
We won't even talk about that. They were the pirates.
Anyway. I was gonna, just stop now and move on.
We're just gonna keep.
Yeah, just keep rolling.
Like I said, you get a chance to edit. But true story. So what I did was I graduated from school and had no idea what I was going to do with a political science degree, and stumbled into some payroll job. And then I turned out I know how to use Excel, and I started automating things, and the lovely people in the payroll department who had been there for like 20 something years pretty much voted me off the island because I kept trying to automate everything. And so then I got promoted out of their team, and then they just like sort of threw me into HR, and I spent like 7 years trying to get out of HR. And then I was like, well, what if I just actually become really good at this? After, trying to, I was like, my dad was a chief financial officer. So he's like, when are you going to get an accounting or finance job? And it was always like, when are you going to get out of this? And I just kept trying to get out of it so much that I kept doing bigger and better things until I was like, well, it turns out like, what if I just lean into this? And somewhere along the line, I met Paul, and I've had a lot of, I've actually been very fortunate to have a lot of good mentors and people in my life that brought me along on different things.
And
Paul, don't get confused with that
And
mentor
me.
thing being
Right.
being
You happen to connect those, but there was
they're
a
not,
really there was
I
an M
that
dash
was a-
in the
there was a
ChatGPT project.
yeah, there was an M dash there, but I found wonderful partners and people to collaborate with, and we kind of have this whole little community that includes you guys and a bunch of other people that well, you've had many of them on this podcast well before me, but many of your prior guests were.
I don't know who had the Vegas over under on you giving me shit about when you showed up on the podcast. I would have taken the under at 6 minutes. So I'm actually excited it took that long. So, but we saved you for a big episode. So
yeah, and I appreciate getting to kick off a year and to not to spoil it, but to predict the future, since obviously I must be very good at that.
And that's why we do it in January, because no one goes back the following December or January to check. So
No, exactly.
Although, since you mentioned Bryan, we've known each other for a while. You'll remember this. Not long ago, we looked back at a presentation we gave in the past, which was predicting the future. Like, it was a what's coming next. It was a whole conference about sort of future of work, and it was like, I actively don't make predictions. Like, there's too much uncertainty in the world. Let's respond to what we have. But we made predictions there, and it was actually kind of crazy how accurate you were about like what's likely to come, particularly on this sort of data AI front. Like, we were talking about that well before it became a thing, and Bryan in particular kind of knew what was coming.
We did a pretty good job on that one, I will say, John. I mean, looking back at a deck from like 7 years ago, it was like, we were talking. I mean, nobody was talking about ChatGPT like it was, but we were talking about like LLM type stuff.
Yeah.
Like the. And I don't know how we even. I don't think we knew how close we were taking a shot in the dark, I think.
Yeah.
But
so I'm feeling now like if these don't go today, well, next year the variable here was me, and
Must be.
they were all wrong due to me.
yeah. And,
Okay.
And I'll even go one step further and say if they turn out to be right, we did it in spite of you.
Yeah. And that's the show, everyone. I appreciate it.
Right.
Thanks for joining.
So now that we've established you don't know why Sean is here, so typically this is the point in the episode where Sean sort of takes over and does the speed round. But since Sean's pointless, kidding.
Wow,
no, kidding.
I thought I was digging in, but now
I know I took it.
Thing.
My
this
yes
is your
and
thing,
went
Sean. I really appreciate you having me on, Sean. I just want to go ahead and say.
If for some reason I don't want Paul on anymore, Bryan, you're happy to help out?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a guest in your house, I appreciate after I have now, insulted you 7 times in a row. I just want to say thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, let's do a speed round. I know some of the answers to these. I don't know answers to some of these. And Bryan, you don't know what questions are coming your way, although as a dedicated listener to Totally Rewarding Chats, there are some that are indeed sort of common questions that we ask.
Yeah, like tea, hotel, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. All right.
Well, I'm skipping the tea
that.
now. Yeah, I'm definitely skipping the tea one because you're going to say sweet tea or something like that.
Sweet tea from the deep south. Yep,
yeah,
Georgia, all
okay.
the way.
Let's start with the big one, which is you've got your weekend. Are you roughing it, or are you at the Marriott?
I am at the Marriott.
I should have actually preemptively told you you're not allowed to ask this one, Paul, because I knew the answer as well.
Yeah, 100%. Any one of the 30 some odd brands, but I'll be there for sure.
That's right. Your preferred metric, and it must be for measurement purposes, not for jokes. Range penetration or comp ratio?
You know, going to the consulting background, it depends. Yeah.
We need to get a buzzer. Actually, we
Actually,
just
for
first
that,
episode, but episodes going forward, I may have to get some type of buzzer or foghorn for it.
I actually don't love either. I tend to build a set. So that's where like my true answer is okay. I'll probably default to comp ratio for a lot of things if I'm looking for a quick measure. I tend to have my teams run full analysis of jobs and do like we tend to look at regression analysis and residuals, and I tend to get more to a predicted value and change that conversation a little bit. So it's a limit. Maybe it's a both, but actually neither.
So much for speed in the speed round.
I
Yeah,
know.
geez.
It gives me. That's the southern sweet
He took
tea.
that full nerd in a hurry.
Yeah.
I think you're a sort of a time zoneless person, but are you more a morning person or a night owl?
It depends, but no.
Jeez, 2 in a row.
I have become more of a morning. I'm a more of a morning person the older I get, and less of a night person. Every year that goes by, I can't sit through. I can't start a movie at 8 o'clock and stay awake anymore. So I'm officially middle aged.
Yeah, that's a sign, man. Here we go. Here's a wild card one. We've not asked this before, and it might take you a minute to think it through. Identify a musician, an actor, or some pop culture person that sort of reflects the way that you think you are professionally, right? So think about what's your professional brand and what's like a celebrity or a musician that encapsulates sort of that vibe. That's not a speed question, but I wanted to give you a hard one.
No, that's
because you're special.
I mean, while you're thinking on that, Brian, I'll buy you a second. I don't know that Paul likes you because that's like the hardest question anyone's ever asked in the speed round.
right.
Yeah.
He tries to break me on stage, so I have to sort of make it clear that he doesn't always have an immediate brilliant response. Like he might actually think periodically.
So the first place I go, and this is an answer when people say like if you could have a celebrity play you or whatever, that kind of thing. So I have, and this is not as popular as when I first like thought of this answer, but I still try to find a better one. Is I think about kind of before it was popular, not to maybe not be popular on this person, but I always think of Chris Pratt, but when it was fat Chris Pratt, like on Parks and Recreation, not when he was not like not like Jurassic Park or in that, but like Andy Dwyer, Parks and Recreation.
By the end of 2026, will you be Jurassic Chris?
Yeah, well, we could be like the Zero Dark 30 or whatever.
Yeah. So you've got
those.
Okay.
Like there's that. So there's that. But as far as like a character, that one's even. There's probably I don't know. There's probably somewhere between like Ron Swanson on Parks and Rec and like Jim in The Office is probably somewhere between where my vibe probably.
Yeah. I was going to give you a hint, which is like pick an Office character. And I think there is a little bit of Jim vibe, not the sales part, but the rational dry humor in the room.
Right. There's like that dry humor, but then probably like a curmudgeonly, like a Ron Swan, like kind of a her. But yeah, there's probably somewhere between those two.
Yeah.
On that spectrum.
There you go. Good. Now back to speed. Crunchy or creamy peanut butter?
Creamy.
Yeah. That was a quick answer. We don't get a lot of crunchy on this. It's just not popular.
That's yeah.
It's all right.
I feel like crunchy and creamy peanut butter is kind of like mayonnaise. Like you're either for it or against it. Like that.
There are very few people. There have been a couple people who've answered like it depends on the situation, but for the most part, the answer comes almost instantly and can be very divisive with some people. They're like, "Why would they buy that?"
Yeah.
Totally. All right. Well, should we jump in then, Sean?
The
bold part of the show.
Yeah. So like we're gonna try to prognosticate, hopefully with some semblance of accuracy, as you guys did before, on some predictions for 2026. And so we'll just start, Brian. We'll give you the easy one. It's easy to go first. We try. One industry prediction to start. You can pick your order. I think what we want to tackle is an industry prediction, something you think, that will happen, something that you won't, that might not happen that everyone's thinking about, and then maybe a company to watch. I'll let you pick your lane where you want to start.
All right. So, um, something I think something that will happen is I do think. All right. Well, actually, can I modify the company to watch thing, and can I talk about a feature that I think will come?
There
So
you
I
go.
because you guys are out in the marketplace. I'm just like a practitioner, just doing the work. You guys, I have to read your post to figure out what's happening in the industry.
Yeah.
But
Brian, we don't expect you to follow instructions. Like it's okay. Like
here's the feature that I think here's what I think will be in the tech front that will be interesting in HR, and I think whoever does this best will like stand out this year, which is the feature that helps people talk about, like, in our business, particularly about like pay or equity or transparent, the thing that helps people talk about that. So the things that helps managers say, this is how we decided your pay, this is how, the thing that helps answer questions. So whether that's training for the managers or whether that is help, like the thing that helps sort of feed the bot that answers the question as you put your HR bots out there and do those things. I think that space to help bridge the gap between kind of this murky, I think technology is actually going to be the way to add consistency. Because in a lot of companies, you've got thousands of managers. Like, it's very hard. I've worked in companies where we've had 60,000 people managers. I work in a company now where we have 1,100 people managers that I'm responsible for. Trying to get all of those people to talk about your company's pay philosophy the same way, or to explain how a bonus plan works or how to do that, it's like herding cats, right? So I think whoever can bring about the thing that allows you to sort of say, to answer questions for people, sort of in that chat GPT, whatever the, Copilot, whatever it is, I think whatever that solution in like a tool is will actually be probably like a winning solution. That will be a game changer, I think.
Google Translate from HR comp nerd to human, right?
Yep. There you go.
Basically,
Yep.
I think uh, it's a soapbox I've got on, but interestingly, Brian, I've never basically spoken about it as a feature. I've basically said you need to communicate as normal humans, and jokingly, I've said get the marketing team involved, because on one side, their whole job is to now boil things down and make it that everyone can understand it in 15 seconds. And then jokingly, I've said if marketing can understand it, anyone can in your company, because they're not familiar with this. But to put that in feature mode, to be able to have it so that you can scale it out and consistently do it in different places
yeah.
would be a super cool feature.
Well, and it follows what one of my sort of this will happen predictions would be, right? So there's a certain, this is not a bold prediction, right? Everybody knows the EU Pay Transparency Directive goes into effect this year. My my prediction is everyone's going to realize that's less about the pay equality stuff. Like, that's math. That's pretty easy. It's the right to information, and the way you need to now explain things is actually the game changer. And it'll take time for that, for people to have that oh my gosh moment. I just had 500 employees ask questions. Who answers them? How do they answer them? Right? So I think you're right, Brian, that like being able to tech enable that discussion or that inquiry, if I could just broaden it, right? Like, because it's going to be hard to scale that. And there are providers that are thinking about how do you do that thoughtfully in the tech space. Is there an AI play? Is there not? Is it the manager? Is it the HR? Like, how do you enable that is going to be a big problem. And as a result, like, what can the comp tech world do to make that a little bit simpler? If you've got 10,000 people in Europe spread across 15 countries, like, you've got a real workload issue potentially come fall. And if the tech stack's not there to help, you're going to have to beef up your resources.
So I guess my first prediction on that kind of ties into that. So I'm glad well done, guys. We didn't check answers, so I'm stoked. But I think the CMP play, the talking between agents of different types is going to be super critical, because as the dev nerd, of course I have to have something like that, but as the development nerd on that side, you can't build everything for everybody all the time. It's just not functionally capable. And so, being able to have a CMP from a product that is doing the comp and kind of in theory putting out whatever comp planning and to reward statements, all that stuff. But then where do you link to for somebody that actually has this translation engine across multiple languages or whatever? We're not going to build it. We're going to talk back and forth, with another tool and have that going. And so I think specificity is going to be a big thing this year, where people really start to have, what do I outsource? What do I need to be good at? Because while AI makes things easier and LLMs, it also makes it harder to do. So that's I think you're going to end up with this kind of weird networks in the back office of stuff where you just have tons of way more partners than you used to have, because you used to do it all yourself.
Yeah. I would say we're going down that journey right now, and it's an interesting thing, because like you have one bot that's really good at talking about benefits, but then you got to link that into something else.
I want your opinion, because I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. We talk about this, and everyone's got something, and everyone wants to be like it. Are you guys Teams or Slack? Out of curiosity.
Teams.
So the goal is everyone's like, we're going to integrate with your Teams. We're going to integrate with your Teams. Okay, how's Teams knowing which thing to do? And so when you go and ask, like, how am I paid compared to everybody else? That's a legit question. Where's that going? And that, like, for me, that's the complexity of this year that's coming in the back office of Teams. So somebody in your department, and at your company, Bryan, as an end user, is like, what the heck? Because HR has 15 different tools that wants to be set in Teams, and that's before we talk about our day jobs and all our other stuff and everything else. And it's like, how do you actually traffic that, and will Teams be able to keep up? Like, to me, that's the problem of 2026 as we get going.
Yeah, to me, the oversimplified answer is you have kind of like your HR, your Ask HR Anything bot, and then have that sort of triage out. But as we're working through it, it's not just like, oh, this bot knows to ask this, because if somebody says, I need a day off work because my car insurance is there, is that an insurance question that goes to the benefits bot, or is that an automobile reimbursement policy thing? Is that an expense question, or is it a PTO like payroll question? Like which one of those? Like, what if your issue touches 3 different groups? Like, you can't just necessarily route it that way. So
yeah, and so maybe the answers have to go back out, and the Teams has to concatenate it. And I want credit, actually, because most people don't think I know any words over 3 syllables. So
concatenate, man.
It's actually 4 syllables.
I know, big day for me. Well, I'll start the year off right, Paul. Now I'm checked off preemptively 4 syllable word for the year.
It's no heteroscedasticity, but it is.
Yeah, you just like to say that. Like,
it's my favorite. There's so many people who know it's my favorite big word.
I don't know. We're gonna have to put that somewhere in the.
You don't
snippet.
have to block that one. It's clean. It's just.
Okay. I like the fact that you right away. You've known me long enough, Bryan, to know that there is no chance in hell that I knew what that word was.
No, it's fine.
That I was going to be Googling that, after anyway, and you're like, just giving me a heads up.
I'll text you how to spell it for everyone.
Okay. That's good. I need help with that, mostly in picture form.
I'll send you a Wikipedia link. It's very easy to you'll understand it when we show you the scatter chart. It's great.
Brian's iPhone is the only one in the world that auto corrects to heteroskedasticity when you start. Like, there's no, everybody else is like, you don't mean to say that. Trust me. Like, that's not the word you're looking for.
Yeah, that's not the word you're looking for.
So do you have a thing that you think has been hyped that isn't going to happen?
So I was kind of thinking about that, and Paul, of course, already stole my answer because we have known each other for so long, and I was taking it a different way. But I'm gonna stick with this one and drill in a little bit further. I do think with the EU Pay Transparency thing, I think with pay transparency in the U.S., the thing that's going to walk. So there's really 2 there. I think we're gonna see it walk back from like the social justice thing, which I think Paul was kind of, it's not going to be about like equality between, it's not going to be this we are the world, like we're going to set equality between men and women or a racial or ethnic group or something like that. I think that element of it is, whether it's the political nature of things or just kind of like society. I think when the rubber hits the road, it is going. I think the part that people have been trying to address for like the better part of the last decade that like was maybe the root cause of it. I think we're going to see that step back to this very practical, like, hey, what about me? And now each person's going to be a consumer, and it's not going to be this like, hey, we're trying to make sure that we're not discriminating against one group. It's going to be people are using whatever information they have to leverage and change the conversation and doing that. So I do think that it's going to be a step back from maybe some of the more noble goals and maybe a step forward into like a different relationship between employers there.
Yeah.
So that was my thing that I think, we might not see as much equality come out, because I think there'll be games that people play on the equality front. And then I think there'll be a lot of stuff that happens there.
I was speaking with Alexander, who's a co-founder of PayGap, which is a Nordic-based sort of pay transparency platform. And his prediction, I would say, and I'm going to put words in his mouth. Sorry, Alexander, if I misquote you, but it's, the emphasis is moving the enforcement of pay equity to the person, not to the organization, right? So we've all had equal pay laws forever, right? It's just impossible to enforce them. So by this transparency dimension of, I have to show you everything, like it's going to police differently, right? So I think his perspective, or at least what I took from it, is we might still get to the noble goal. That is the objective of some of this regulation. It's just how you're getting there is we're like, if we have to show everybody and you've got to explain it to every employee who asks, you're going to get your act together. Like, so it's the different tact, but I think the pressure is not going to be felt as we want to pay everyone equally. It's going to be, I need to figure out how to explain this, right? So the tone in the conversation is going to be less about, I think what we heard, a decade ago from the Salesforces of the world that wanted to pay equally because it was the right thing to do. And it's going to be more about, we have to operate differently, because workers expect it, and or because a jurisdiction has told us we have to. It's one of the two, right? So it's flipping the logic a lot, and it's going to feel very different in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny. So for those, our tens of listeners, that are there, we didn't compare answers, and mine is pay equity won't happen in 2026. And I think for the reasons that you mentioned, it's there, but I also always come back to just the practicality of there's one way to fix pay equity, and the economy is not dictating a lot of extra free cash out there to solve the problem. And the businesses, while pay equity is happening and while things are going well, you could think about solving it, but they still have to be profitable. They still have other issues to tackle, et cetera. And I think pay equity will just take a period of time. I actually think a lot of people give Switzerland shit for their whole 3 years to fix it. I actually don't think that's super long if you look at turnover and everything else, because I think the way that people are going to handle pay equity is, there's going to be people who find out and they're going to leave, and I might pay one or two people, but like it's going to just take time, and it's going to force quality decisions on people onboarding, which is where a lot of the problems are, and that's just going to take time to be done. So I think, to me, pay equity just, everyone's like, June's coming, and there's going to be a magic wand, and, a pot of gold was going to drop off, off the rainbow from a unicorn, and it was all going to be solved. And I think people have their plan in place and understand, and I actually think the right to information, probably for some small departments, in my mind, is going to preempt people actually solving the problem, because you have to be ready for like everybody coming in for their own personal report that I have to give within 14, and answer the questions and whatever. You're like, I don't have, that's who's not going, right? The people over 50 maybe, but at least half the company's gonna be like, why am I over here? That's not cool.
Yeah, totally. I think that's fair. I think the noise level is going to be huge on sort of Article 7 related things, that as a result, people are going to take their eye off the ball just to figure out how to do this. Will it ultimately lead us to a better place? I sure hope so. But yeah, I think that's not the near term.
Fundamentally, I'll die on this hill, probably. I used to say everybody wants to be a good payer, and I've been corrected. Sure, I'll buy almost everybody. Most companies want to be a good payer.
Sure.
But just shit happens, right? Someone's there. Someone, I need to hire this talent over here. This happens. This person left. Numbers move. Some of it's just maths. People need to understand how it works. I think, and there's just a million micro decisions that happen. And I think what's happening now, Paul, is that micro decision now has some more context to it, when you can, add that in and say, okay, Bryan, I do want to hire Bryan, but, he costs, this much. And this is the problem it's going to have on it. I also worry economically that pay equity slows hiring a lot, because if I want to upskill and I want to bring in Bryan, and Bryan, rightfully so, should be paid a lot of money, right? Um, Other people in that department, if I'm going to have to show them, because I think what's going to happen is the right to information isn't limited number of times per year, right? No one's actually said that. It's just you can go ask. So I think as soon as Bryan gets hired,
You're gonna be like, why did the average number for this job just move
yeah,
up?
and I'll come back to this. I've said it before. No company that I've spoken to yet has a people strategy of hiring dumbasses. Like, that has not been the people strategy yet. That maybe someone's got them somewhere, because there's many of them.
There's probably somewhere, but
Yeah, but so the theory is, to your point, Bryan, like, people are going to, like, here's my group, I had it. They just hired Bryan and maybe one other. Let's go see what the number is. And, like, did it go up? Because now I'm further behind, right?
right.
And so you're going to have to pay. I think in theory, the ramification would be, if I bring Bryan on, I'd probably have to move everyone else up too. So, like, it costs more to make a new hire, to upskill potentially. And that just slows hiring, because just the decision making alone inside a company, I think.
Yeah. So, in my very in my moving around practitioner world, the last couple of years, I've focused a lot of the pay equity solutioning in companies that I've been at on making the right decision at the point of offer. Like, how do we explain this at the point of offer, even to ourselves? Not necessarily saying, like, if everybody comes walking in, but if I've got 99 people in this job, I'm hiring in the 100th person. How do I make sure that 100th person sort of fits into that regression story as well as possible, right? So I've built tools. We've done that. Some of our other friends that have already been on the podcast, they're building the tools and doing those things too, right? What I would say is, as you put the regulatory part on that, if I can segue this into another prediction I have, is it's going to get much tougher for the people that are trying to break into things, or that are, like, below average, right? Because part of the pay equity discussion right now, if you talk to managers, one of the if you got 20 people on your team, it's very hard to tell 9 or 10 of them that they're below average for the team. Nobody wants to go out and say, hey, guess what? You guys are below average. You guys are above average. We tend to go, hey, you're all meets expectations, or you're all a 3 out of 5, or you're all a 5 out of 5, or we tend to do a lot of that. When you get into, now I've got to justify it, I've got to put factors behind it. I got to look at somebody on the team and go, hey, you're the 33rd percentile. Like, sorry, 2/3 of the people here are better than you. Whether I say that in those words, or whether I de facto express it, I'm essentially defending that, or I'm pushing everybody together and just saying performance doesn't matter, or I'm putting it into a bonus, or I'm doing, more short-term things. So what I think that, combine that with AI, is, why do I want to take chances on a lower paid person that's maybe aspiring to jump into that job, or somebody that's a risk? Like, I think it's going to put a bigger gap between, like, hey, I'm going to hire Sean because he's got a lot of experience and he knows this and he's a proven quantity and he's got a podcast and everybody knows who he is, versus I'm going to take a chance on this, like, new analyst who may or may not work out. But then if that analyst realizes that they're 20% behind everybody else because I took a chance on them, I'm not going to move them up. So you combine that with the AI world that can do a lot of easy tasks. I guess I worry for, like, I think every one of us, when we were like 22, 23, trying to break into the professional workforce, was like, how do you get experience without having experience? I think that thing is going to get exponentially harder. That would be one of my other predictions on this, is you've got this regulatory piece, and then you've got just the nature of, like, a computer, a $20 a month computer bot can be about as dumb as a college student,
So it's like the robots are giving sort of this upward pressure. Right? It's kind of eating at the bottom of the work. And then sort of this, I think the case is that the transparency requirements in particular are sort of putting a lid on it to an extent. Like, do I really want to bring in that person? I'm going to have to explain to them tomorrow why they're low. So
Well,
why
the
not
irony to
just
that, though,
poach in the
Paul,
middle,
is
right? Yeah.
as an old white guy, like weirdly, the advantage is for me to switch somewhere and be low in the range is a better risk than as a female, right? Because pay equity wise, like generally the number we're trying to fix is, I'm the category of problem, right? And
You
so
are a problem. Yeah.
yeah, well, many problems, but in this particular case,
Oh,
you
we're
know,
talking about pay still, right?
yeah, we only have yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of time, Brian, to go into the other problems. And so, like for me, it makes these weird decisions. Will people make decisions like that when they hire new? Will they not hire again? The same reason we probably weren't hiring for the right reasons before the right person. Are we going to hire, wrong again to kind of solve the problem? When you look at the end size and the math, that's there.
Interesting.
If you had a company or something to watch this year that you're interested to kind of sit back and, I don't know if you eat popcorn, but, sit back, have a, think of popcorn and watch. What are you looking at or most interested to see how it plays out?
Like any company or
Anything.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah. Why don't you start, Sean?
I am very interested to see how the European governments create legal precedent at all, if at all, in Europe in July, since everything's due in June, and whether they actually do anything. Wait and see. Is it a real slap on the hand? Is it a hey, thanks, but you got 2 years? Like, I'm very interested to see how that actually plays out, because for 3-4 years now, we've all been like, June 2026, June 2026. And now it's like, okay, what happens?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think my popcorn moment, if I could reframe it a little bit that way, we still think there's a lot, and this is sort of close to home on the comp tech front. We think a lot of consolidation is still coming. Just a crowded space, many players, new categories getting created that sort of, I don't want to say invalidate, but de-emphasize sort of the need for other things. And there's just a lot out there, and there's some private equity and VC checks from not that long ago that are coming due.
2021, right? I was going to say 2021, like we're in that 4 to 7 year horizon for VCPE of when some, I won't say the cash raised was high, but the valuations were high.
That's right. It's time to see return. It's time to see return. And if that means you're going public, awesome. If that means somebody else is going to buy you, awesome, as long as it's more than what I put into it. Right. So I just think that's likely to occur when you've got a crowded space and a funding cycle that's ripe in that perspective. Right. So I do think, and we've seen it play out a little bit here looking back in 2025, but there's no doubt in my mind something will still occur, that many things will occur in 26.
Not even from the perspective of the VCPE, Paul, but just the amount of cash raised and the runway created. There's only so much runway before they ride off or find another airport.
That's right. And Excel was the market share leader for comp cycles. When I started covering this, Excel's still the market share leader for comp cycles. So like, while there are companies getting traction, it's a tough market to really get traction in. And not everybody wants to throw money at tech right now, right? Like the environment to pay for something is not at its highest. So like, you put all that into one big pot, and consolidation becomes a consequence. Whether that's good or bad for the industry, I don't know, but I think it's going to happen. So I'm waiting to see what happens.
Brian, but those are two things you can't now say.
So I'll take the pivot on that, which is, to the point of Excel being, the number one tool that gets used and all of those things. I do think, and Paul, we exchanged text, I think maybe earlier this week or last week or something about, the biggest company, if you look at the S&P 500 and some of that, there's like, there's 6 or 7 tech companies that, and it's Microsoft, it's Google, it's all of that. But you have 40% of the market value of the S&P 500 is in a handful of companies that are candidly, now ChatGPT is not in that group, but because they're not public, but you put it in that side. There's a handful of companies that are handing trillions of dollars back and forth to each other and investing in each other and pumping up all that value. And so to me, the thing to watch on that is, is that a house of cards at some point, somewhere off of that. But all this money that's going into infrastructure, I've heard it compared to it's kind of like the .com phase in the late '90s. Is there's billions of dollars, like money's being thrown into things, and we know great stuff is going to come out. I mean, you talk about, when you say .com, people immediately think bust and a break, but like tons of infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, it was a bust, but there was the whole fiber optic infrastructure, like all these things. Now, there might have been companies that lost billions and trillions of dollars doing it, but like, where does like this big central infrastructure come into play? How long does it go before people start saying, like, I'm getting $20 a month to build a giant, nuclear server farm somewhere or something, and is that really the right payoff, or how does that work? Like, because does that become the new Excel? Does that become the new Microsoft Excel versus all the tools? And like, we know a lot of people that are, that have taken the VC and the PE money or are doing a lot of different things. But is there this like juggernaut out there that kind of introduces the new thing that then we all just kind of use this amorphous structure out there? Or does that like run out of cash and collapse on itself, and who cares? We won't be worrying about pay equity or anything because the whole thing is.
Well, I don't know that it's run out. I think as the old guy here who lived through the .com in those years you mentioned, sadly.
We did too. We aren't that young.
I read about it. No,
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
I was employed in the middle of it. Like that was.
Well, the middle of what, the 90s?
No, like the .com bust, right? Like
yeah,
I was among those new hire classes that.
So having ridden the wave of the .com bubble and been at a company that came out the other end and we were profitable, I think there's this, we're rhyming with that time, maybe not repeating, in that with AI, I think they're doing it for free. Like .com, everyone, there was just like AI, there's cool stuff and people are giving it away and whatever. At some point, you've got to start making money. And so I think two things are going to happen. People who don't have really good functional problems being solved in the HR tech space, they'll just fall away. It was cool and shiny, but like I can't get budget for it because now we have to charge. I also think AI itself, like right now, is free to cheap, but it's not. And I think as energy costs go up and whatever, there's going to be places where you're like, we're going to have to start charging for that, or that feature is going to be charged, or our software costs more. And if the software doesn't have true ROI itself, then you can't pay for it. It's going to fall out. And so I think it's a really good analogy, Bryan, to like the .com. Like the companies that came out of that were making money lasted a long time, but they were solving real functional problems, as opposed to like, this is super cool. Have you been to this website, thing that wasn't making money?
Yeah.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of big money that went into some big names, right? And then they, take like AOL, Time Warner, and you look at some of that
Alta
stuff.
Vista. We were talking about Alta Vista the other day. Was my search engine of choice at Monster for testing, and it's not now. So I think you're right, Bryan. Like I think this profitability and having a legit business. And the cost, I think the cost of AI is, we know it's extremely expensive. My daughter, who's in the environmental policy and, solar engineering side, sadly will be home for a while and giving me lots of crap about AI. So because of the cost, the potential cost, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. This relates to my prediction that won't happen, but I'm also going to put a little star, which is I wish that it would. It will not happen that the AI hype dies, right? So I think we all, if you're a follower of the Gartner sort of hype cycle concept, like the trough of disillusionment has to come at some point in this. But I don't think it's in 2026, right? And my reason for that is while I think many are realizing you need a problem to solve, like there needs to be real substance. Half the conversations I still have, AI is still black magic, and they're still sort of climbing those expectation heights, right? So I do think the marketing engines are still going to put AI behind everything because they have to, because there's a lot of people who still believe in the hype more than the problem reality. So I think we're we're still in the frothy world. I don't know if the marketing, maybe the valuation bubble pops, but I don't think the marketing bubble pops yet because there's enough people still buying into it.
I'll be a little spicy and say I think it'll settle a little bit from the standpoint of everyone's got it. And it's kind of like, to me, it's going to become customer service. Like, you don't ever get a bid and anyone says we have shitty customer service. Never a thing, right? I mean, Bryan, you've been a practitioner. Who has told you in all the vendors you worked with in your life that what they bring to the table is crappy customer service?
Yeah,
right?
no,
Nobody
not a
does
lot.
it. And I think it's going to be, you assume that everyone's going to tell you their AI works and whatever, and you're going to go to features. So I think I don't disagree completely, Paul, that it's fraud, but I think vendors are going to start to be like, everyone says you got it. You know, I mean, practitioners are going to say, everybody's got it. Fine. Like, you got the 4 wheels on the car. Great. What does the car do?
Yeah.
Like, does it? Yeah.
I'm with you. I just think that's more likely to play out in terms of the trough of disillusionment shows up in a year, because they're still like, everybody's been promising AI. Oh, this is coming. This is in beta. This is going to land. This is the year where it lands, and everybody goes, okay, right? Awesome. I'm glad that's there. I don't use it, but I'm glad it's there. And it turns out everybody else has the same thing, right? That's where I think it takes a while for that cycle to turn. And 27 is when people go, okay, that was garbage.
Well, we'll see if you're right next year when we have Bryan back.
That's right.
If I'm invited back, we'll see. It depends how much. Depending whether I come back, probably depends how much you edit out from the beginning. For, you know.
Well, we're kind of near with all those in mind. The thing we ask all the time at the end, which is kind of not a prediction, but a hopeful thing, which maybe it'll happen. If you could solve, especially with your experience, any one thing in HR, like any one problem in HR automagically, what would it be?
And this is something, if I blend it into a little bit of a prediction, and I think it's going to take more than this year, so that's why it's an aspiration of one thing that could solve. I think if we can take the technology to make our HR functions better business people, right? So that we're actually solving sort of the human capital problems, as opposed to like maybe just like, if I think about like, you know, so much of the time HR practitioners get bogged down in like employee relations and dealing with like the outcome of bad things, as opposed to proactively dealing with like strategy and developing people, you know, like there's a lot of good aspirational stuff in HR. And so whether it is pay equity or developing people or talent pipelines or career paths or doing those types of things, I would hope that if we can get some savings by automating some of the less fun work, that we could actually achieve some of those things that are on our list. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've said before, I don't know where you find the time, because, you know, there's a good reason I don't want to be a practitioner, Bryan. I've stated several times that job just looks like it sucks and it's super busy and thankless. So just, you know, anyone who wants to be one, don't come to me looking for support. But I think if you can find the time to go understand the business and how they think, like what's motivating them in the business terms, and almost be able to translate that. So I'm 100% down with that, like understanding the business acumen of it rather than worried about the, you know, 15th digit of significant, you know, 15th significant digit out on a comp, you know, on someone's comp.
Yeah. Making sure your total reward statement has the right decimal point value or
the right font. That's my favorite. Can you do
am I talking about a fiscal year or a tax year or something like that? Can we move to how do I make my operations more efficient? How do I prevent turnover? How do I do those kind of things?
Cool. Well, thanks. I not that I was keeping score, Bryan, but you only said 4 times. You only commented 4 times that you hadn't been on earlier.
Yeah. So, you know, Sean, it's only the FOMO and the you know, it's listening to every episode and just going, man, I wish I could be a part of that.
Well, we're gonna have to get some totally rewarding chat swag so I can bring
feel a part of it.
Bring to Atlanta, you know.
Yeah. I do feel like, you know, usually Bryan and I make our regular appearances on stage at World at Work, and this might be the first time you didn't sort of break me live. Like, usually there's a moment where I'm like, I actually have to collect myself. It happened pre-show. You got me pre-show. But once we started recording for everybody else.
So I'll put this out there. We'll be at World at Work, and we'll podcast from there. So, Bryan, you can start getting your game ready to break him twice at
You
World at
know,
Work multiple times.
the bar to break Paul has raised over the years, and this is recorded and stays on my permanent record on the internet.
Yeah.
So I I will accept defeat this one time.
One time.
But,
That means
but
I'm really in for it next time.
live audience, we will.
That's true.
I
And
mean,
our world at work session is being mixed with alcohol, so I'm really at risk.
yeah,
I'm really at risk in
Well,
seeing
that's
people.
concerning, actually. I think the one I've got is margaritas, and we've got kind of a theme going between us.
That was
So
literally during happy hour, so like Bryan
yeah.
might be on the edge, and the audience will be sauced and not listening carefully. So
I mean,
I'm in
I
trouble.
do think we did. I mean, I think somewhere in there we were talking about college mascots or something, and I did skip right over some of the easy answers. So,
Yeah.
nah.
all right.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. We will definitely have you on again, and in the
Yeah.
meantime, feel free to give me, I'm actually a little disappointed in the only 4 references to not being on. I would have taken the over. But I'm really stoked you were on. This is great for you. You know
Yeah.
it. You don't give yourself enough credit about how much you know, despite not, for those of us that are on vendors or analyst side, you know a ton about the market. So I really appreciate your insights.
Yeah. Thanks, Bryan.
Appreciate you guys. I'll always enjoy the friendship. So, thank you guys.